Electric cars are getting easier to live with all the time. It used to be that EVs only had a tiny range and were therefore only useful in the city. Yet now you can easily buy a model capable of more than 300 miles of range on a charge. Yet people who live in the city will probably still want a city car, and that's where the Seat Mii Electric comes in. It's small, easy to park, and despite its modest 161-mile range, that's likely to be plenty for the kind of driving that most people who live in a built-up area will do. So, should we find out what it's like? But before we do, don't forget to subscribe to the Driving Electric YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified when new videos go live, and give our video a thumbs up while you're there. If the Mii looks familiar, that'll be for two reasons. Firstly, it's been around as a petrol model since 2012, which has now been discontinued, and secondly, it's really closely related to the Volkswagen e-Up and the Skoda Citigo e-iV. All three use the same technology, but instead of an engine, there's a 36.8 kilowatt-hour battery and an 82 brake horsepower electric motor. That means it has roughly the same power output as a petrol model, but the motor has much more torque. It's quick off the mark, and so it's easy to drive around town, but more on that a little later. So the Mii Electric looks pretty much the same as the petrol version. The charging flap doesn't even give it away because that's hidden where you'd usually fill up the car with petrol. But it's not as convenient as on some electric cars where the socket is hidden in the nose. So watch out for that when you're parking up next to a charger. Even things like the pop-out rear windows are the same as on the petrol version, which seems a bit stingy given that this electric version costs thousands of pounds more than the petrol one. There's only one model, which is 5-door, but that's fine by us because it gives easy access to the rear seats. So if you did want to use it as a small or occasional family car, then it's easy enough to do so. During our test, we averaged 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour, which works out at 140 to 145 miles in the real world. That's pretty good, and thanks largely to this being one of the smallest and lightest EVs around. The Seat Mii doesn't have the kind of rapid charging capability we're starting to see on mainstream EVs, like the Volkswagen ID.3, and it can't even match city car rivals like the Honda E. Its maximum charging rate is just 40 kilowatts, which means it takes nearly 50 minutes to get a 10 to 80% charge on a rapid public charge point. But don't write the Mii off just yet. Most owners will top up at home overnight, where it takes only 5.5 hours to go from empty to full if you have a 7.4 kilowatt home wall box charger. Doing so will cost about a £5, and it could be even cheaper if you have a tariff that offers cheaper electricity at night. Yet the Mii's strength isn't its range or charging, it's the price. And yes, we know it's more expensive than the petrol version used to be, but alongside rivals like the Mini Electric, it's really affordable. Attractive finance deals work in the Seat's favour too, making it really appealing for those looking for a small runaround that won't cost much to run. There are a lot of electric city cars that claim to be fun to drive, but the Seat Mii Electric definitely ticks that box. For a small car, it has plenty of power, so don't be fooled by the numbers. On paper, Seat says it will do 0 to 62 miles per hour in 12.3 seconds. But in reality, it feels way quicker. The response is instant, so it feels really quick when you're driving around town and accelerating out of junctions. The fact that it's so small also adds to that feeling of fun as well, because you can fit it through gaps that large SUVs and vans can't. The Mii is easy to park and visibility is good. With the wheels being right at each corner of the car, you can tell how wide and how long the car is when you're manoeuvring. Of course, it's very quiet and relaxing to drive, and it's smooth because, like all electric cars, it's an automatic. And because there's less wind noise and road noise when you're driving around town, it makes it feel like a more expensive model than it actually is. That's less true on the motorway though, as wind noise picks up and the electric motor feels a bit out of its depth at that kind of speed. It'll get the job done, but it's probably not the best car to choose if your daily commute takes in a lot of motorway miles. There's driving modes like Eco, which help maximise the range by limiting the performance. The regenerative brakes aren't as strong as those you'd find in a Mini, but they do help add that tiny bit of range to the battery when you need it. The Mi Electric has just one trim level, and it comes with 16-inch alloys, heated front seats, cruise control, Bluetooth connectivity, DAB radio and rear parking sensors, plus lane keeping assistance and traffic sign recognition systems. You also get LED daytime running lights, auto wipers and a heated windscreen. That's impressive for a city car. One thing to note though, there's no sat-nav or even a proper infotainment system. Yet we can nearly forgive the Mi for this, because if you have a smartphone, chances are you do, then you can place it into this handy mount, plug it into the USB port and be on your way. You can then use the phone's sat-nav from here, listen to music and make phone calls using the Bluetooth system. So it's pretty much like having Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. We won't give it a complete free pass though, because cars costing this much money usually have all of these features built in. The materials are good and it feels spacious in here. SEAT has got away without covering the doors in leather by leaving the paint exposed, but we don't think it's a bad thing. It gives the Mi a youthful, fun personality. The storage is good and the seats are comfortable. There's a useful spot in front of the gear selector and a large cup holder, plus decent sized door bins. The Mi Electric's practical side comes with the fact it's so easy to drive. After all, it's a small car and is never going to be the best choice for carrying people or luggage. The boot is pretty small at 251 litres, but by no means useless, as the rear seats fold down to open up 923 litres, which is a pretty decent amount of space. There's no underfloor storage, but you can also specify the Easy Flex pack for £70, which adds a few practical options, including a place to put the charging cables. It's not too difficult to see the use case for the SEAT Mi Electric. It's a city car through and through. So while it doesn't make a great deal of sense if you do long journeys every day, if you're only doing 20 miles to and from the office in city traffic, then its 161-mile range is a lot. It's comfy, relaxing, good to drive, easy to park and surprisingly practical. It's not a cheap form of transport though, compared to a traditional city car with a petrol engine, as you'd have to drive for a long time to save the extra cash on petrol costs. But if you're looking to go to electric power and live in town, then the SEAT Mi Electric looks like good value for money. Head to drivingelectric.com for all the latest electric car advice, news and reviews. And check us out on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to the Driving Electric YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified when new videos go live.